This is PlayStation Plus or Minus for March 2018. The free games that you can get on PS4 this month are, and strap in cause there's a lot of them, Ratchet and Clank, Bloodborne, Claire Extended Cut, Mighty No. 9, and Bombing Busters. But you can put all those aside for now because this video is all Ratchet and Clank. Now you probably don't know this, but I used to be a huge fan of the old PS2 Ratchet and Clank games way back in the early 2000s. I fell off the series once it made the jump to PS3 and I jumped ship at the time from Sony to Microsoft. But I'm back on the Sony train, so it's time to see how Ratchet and Clank's shiny new upgrade feels. Now with that being said, my intention with this video is not to do a point-by-point comparison to the original. It's been years since I played the original anyway, so I wouldn't really be able to do a serious analysis without a lot more time. So I'm gonna try my best to just talk about how the new game holds up on its own merits. The story is easily the weakest aspect, and not just in comparison to the original. There's a few story moments that feel like they pretty much happen the way they do only because the developers were expecting a lot of people to already know the story. Ratchet and Clank are best friends 5 minutes after meeting because that's the title of the game and that has to happen. Captain Quark being a traitor is given away by this really unnecessary framing device that just serves to shoehorn Quark's really unfunny dialogue into the entire game.
In order to best his foes, Ratchet used the warrior's time-honored tradition of jumping.
And I'm not at all a fan of the side characters or the villain. The two Galactic Rangers here are just the two most boring characters you'll ever see. The villain Drek is just one of those wacky, oh, I'm the bad guy who taunts the player throughout the level, woo, so funny and original. I don't want to harp on the story too much, but it really feels like the movie tie-in that it is. It's just a loose framework on which to hang a succession of levels. Not offensive, but certainly not anywhere close to good. Moving on to the good stuff. As you can see, the game is absolutely beautiful, sporting tons of variety in weapon effects and environments. Character animation is bouncy and full of life, and the visuals as a whole have a wonderful energy to them. Some levels more than others, but the less than stunning visuals are by far the exception. A lot of PC gamers will probably hate the 30 FPS lock and excessive motion blur, but personally I'm not too bothered by these things when a game runs this well and looks this good. Of course, smooth performance and 60 FPS would be ideal, but when it comes to consoles, I'll take what I can get. Okay, I know I said I wasn't going to compare this to the original too much, but if you're wondering where the awesome music that I've been using in the background came from, it's actually from the original, which even 16 years later, these songs are still distinctive and catchy as all hell, and miles better than the new game's soundtrack. Uninspired and boring. Next. Okay, finally we're at the part where I talk about the gameplay. The Ratchet and Clank games are from that strange era of gaming where every game was unhelpfully called action-adventure, so you'll be doing some platforming, some shooting, some puzzling, and some flying with a jetpack. Okay, cards on the table, the gameplay's pretty good overall, but the game really needed more levels like Gaspar, which starts out linear, but then transitions into a completely open layout once you get the jetpack. Flying around with access to all of your weapons, fighting giant monsters in the air, keeping an eye on your fuel and health is insanely fun, but the jetpack is barely used anywhere else. Out of the 12 levels, there are only like 3 that even use it. Instead of a whole bunch of sweet jetpacking action, we get way too many levels that are just a linear succession of bland rooms, and a few too many of these dull Clank levels. Look, I'm not against putting a bit of puzzling in the action to slow down the pace from time to time, but these just drag on for way too long. They're not all that fun and they're just kind of irritating. More grind boot sections and open jetpack areas for the next game, please. Besides that, like I said, the gameplay is pretty good overall. Guns are satisfying to use. I like the incremental upgrade system since it lets guns get more powerful little by little and you can really feel the difference after a while. Though I will say that the variety of guns is a little disappointing. The pixelizer certainly looks cool, but it's just a visually cool shotgun. The sniper is just a sniper, the pistol, flamethrower, grenades, 2 different rocket launchers, and of course, Mr. Zircon. They're all very basic in how they function. Of course, the silly guns are still here, like the Sheepinator and the Buzzblades, but I was hoping for more goofiness. Instead, the funniest weapon, the Groovatron, is also the most boring to use. I mean, yeah, okay, it was funny the first time I saw a tank dance, but it's just an area of effect stun that doesn't really do anything else. That's not to say it isn't fun to use all of these weapons. Flipping around, dodging bullets while shooting grenades and rockets and all that stuff, it's still inherently fun, but it could have been more fun. I don't know, it feels like they just kind of played it safe and just used the most basic, easy to recognize weapons, and the gameplay is good, but I think it could have been better if we got to use some of the weirder stuff and if there was a little more variety. So where does all this leave us in terms of a recommendation? Well, as enjoyable as it is on a very basic level, Ratchet & Clank 2016 has a lot of problems that are pretty impossible to ignore. The weapons lack creativity, the music is completely worthless, the story is completely pointless, and the characters range from boring to downright unfunny and annoying. But also, it looks really nice and plays pretty well for the most part. I'm going to go ahead and give Ratchet & Clank 2016 an It Depends, but that mostly applies to old school fans of Ratchet & Clank. This game is pretty polarizing among old school fans, and I think that's because it gives some aspects of the older games an awesome modern upgrade, and it takes a big fat dump on other aspects. But I think there's a lot to like here from a purely gameplay perspective, which is probably going to be what most new players care about. It's a fun game. I liked it enough to see it through to the end, but I didn't love it, and ultimately it just made me want to go back and replay the old games. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode of PlayStation Plus or Minus. Next video will be on Bloodborne. So like, comment, subscribe, you know, all that stuff, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.